drinking fizzy water, and I'm drinking wine.
Oh, no, I have that too. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, good.
No, I have many beverages. You got to be prepared.
Got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to stay hydrated and then also dehydrate.
Yes.
At the same time.
Hydrate to dehydrate.
Okay. How's Sarah?
Doing fantastic. I can't complain.
Any plans on this housing situation? She's so mad that I asked.
I am, because it just feels like...
I know, it's a lot.
It's just hard to get it all, like you're... It feels like they don't want you to have a house.
Who's they?
I don't know. The people
the man.
The man. I ran into this problem where because I'm a independent contractor or whatever, and I take deductions on my taxes, these lending companies look at the after taxes amount that you net as your income. So because I take deductions out, I basically have to do my taxes with no deductions and pay a big old fatty tax bill so that I can show that I actually make all that and have it.
I mean, it is a real racket.
If I were married or had a partner, this would be like a no problem.
If you had the Tinder swindler right now.
If I had the Tinder swindler, gosh, this would be no problem for Anna.
Right. I mean, it does feel like that, actually.
It does. That's what makes me pissed. Because I'm like, these people are like swindling millions, and I can't even get a loan for like a mortgage an amount that is you can no afford. Joke, $1,300 a month. $1,300, and they're like, we don't know if you could pay that.
Yeah, we have questions.
And I'm like,
I
know I have student loans, but I think I'm good for it, guys.
Yeah, it's a jungle out there. I'm sorry you have to deal with that.
Yeah, so
you
I
feel
think
like
we'll probably be renting for forever.
Really?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure something out, or
damn.
Who knows?
I'm sorry.
I don't know. It feels like, and it's like slim pickings out there.
Yeah, I keep reading about how it's a terrible market.
It's terrible. This house I went to go see, they said they had 90 other appointments for viewings.
My God.
90.
That's not good.
Yeah, and I feel like these apartment companies are really, there's a real racket they're running. You see, I told you the scam culture is a thing. And what they're doing is they're like, oh, yeah, you can apply. It'll be a $35 application fee. And then you're up against 117 other applicants. That seems like you can get 10 and you could pick from those people.
Let's not forget, Susie has a cottage on the property vacant, ready for you. Don't ever worry. You know?
You have snowboarding pretty close.
Yeah, like Plan Z over here. Come on.
Plan Z. It might be Plan C, closer to the beginning of the alphabet. But
I do think it's comforting, though, just to have that idea to, like, you're never actually going to be homeless. Unless I'm homeless, and then we can be homeless together.
Comforting. I will never be homeless. And it is really nice. My brother, shout out to Luke, he's been the best because he just, like, he gave me a key. / I just took his side key. Like, I have a key, and I just, like, come and go. Like, Lucas is like, yeah, whatevs. And he's just, like, the best guy, and he's going to come with me to get a new car. And I'm like, okay, you're going to wear your fireman shirt, and you're going to do that thing where you put your glasses on top of your hat like they do. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but who's they? Do you mean firefighters?
Firefighters.
Oh, yeah.
They all do that. Trust me. Next time you see a group of firefighters together, look at where their glasses are on their hat. Oh, my levels are so off on this. Adam's going to be mad.
Adam's going to be pissed.
Oh, let me correct him.
We need a jingle for that.
Uh-oh.
That's all right. Sorry, Adam. I was cracking up at your Instagram story where you were talking about the manly coffee beans.
Oh, my God. It was so... Because it really was... It's like that. Because his coffee looks like coffee sponsored by the Joe Rogan podcast.
But the fact that he bought it means that it works. Like the dude wipes and all the things that are just what we use, but they make it sound like it's for men, actually is effective.
And the funniest part about that is I was telling this other guy that I went on a date with about, who's like, fits into the NFT guy category, who I did not go on another date with.
Crypto guy.
Well, there's many of them. So, like, you have to be, like, more specific, Sarah. But I was telling him about that, like, story about my brother. And I was like, yeah, it's so funny. I was, like, at his house. And, I was like, look at all the coffee. I'm like, oh, bullet coffee. This is and he was like, and the guy, no joke, like, doesn't even miss a beat. And he's like, yeah, there's another one called Death Wish Coffee. That was really, I was like, that was the one. That was the one.
Do you think, are they marketed this stuff on Instagram or something? Is that how this is happening?
It must be like that these guys are hearing about this from like
social. Targeted marketing.
Targeted ads. They're like, do you want to die by caffeine? Drink this.
You want to
do you want to get shot in the face with energy? Have our bullet rifle coffee.
Get murdered with coffee.
Murdered by coffee. It made me laugh.
Okay, wait. This is why we need the Are Men Okay jingle. I'm going to work on that.
Are men okay? And then it should be like jingle. Men. Like, like fiery flames like that. Men.
I totally stole your bit about Sunday. You'll buy the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. And it gets laughs every time.
Every time! No, because, okay, there was a post, this is not just me who does this, because I saw there was a TikTok where it was this guy who had clips of his wife. And it would be like, did anybody else grow up in like the early 90s and have like a random reference of this? And the guy will have his phone out and he'll just go, Sunday. And the wife will go, Sunday. She'll like finish on. He'll go, hey honey, what are we doing on Sunday? And she goes, Sunday. It's like every time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is me. I am this woman. We have the same thing. We must have there must have been a commercial on local cable television, and I just got it in my head, and it's probably what's to blame for my hoarse, like, low voice to this day, because I was just like doing that impression the whole time.
It's funny and it's true, and you're really good at it, and you have like a whole script. Like, it's not just that, you can go on and on about it. It's great. I love it a lot.
Oh, I love you. You're the best.
Did I mention it's episode 592, you guys?
Whoa! I like that number.
I made a deal with our listeners on Brain Candy Crush, which is our Facebook group, because I had heard rumblings that people hate the fucking interviews, okay? They just don't like them. They want more Sarah and Susie, and really, who can blame them?
Who can blame them? I mean, I don't.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, well, they're a lot of work, so if people don't like them, I sure as heck don't need to do them. And I do understand that, like, it's jarring a lot, because I'll just be like, hey, Sarah, it's like a surprise party every time.
Yeah, I'm like, who's coming today? That's great.
So I said, if I do them, then I will talk about it in the actual episode and say, like, this. Coming up later.
Yeah, this is good. This is good for me, too. Guys, we're just spitballing. We're workshopping this. We're just like you're along for this ride. This is a collaborative podcast. If you feel like, hey, sometimes I listen to Brain Candy because I feel like it's just like me and them having a conversation. Yo, that's how it is, and you're in on this one. Mm-hmm. And you're in on the planning stages. Yeah. So today on Brain Candy, Sarah and I, because I roped her into it, we'll be talking to Danielle Friedman, who wrote an awesome book called Let's Get Physical. And let's get physical. And it's the history of women's fitness. And I loved the book because, as any good history of anything should do, it's about so much more than just women's fitness. It's about I love it. Race and gender and class and all kinds of things that affect whether and how we work out. And I just love that. What an also amazing tie-in to the Brain Candy Book Club pick that I picked, Bravey, this month. It's about an Olympic runner, and she talks a lot about women in sports and how we've done a terrible job of conditioning women in, like, not letting them go through puberty and basically pushing their bodies to this place where they break, and then we're putting them through the same like rigorous training schedule that a man's body goes through, and they're different, and they need that puberty time, and it causes all this eating, all this stuff. And so I'm
sure there's a lot of overlap
to learn more.
Yeah, because it is fascinating. And, you know, if you're just living your life, like for instance, even when I think about the pandemic, we're just, okay, we know this is happening. There's this huge thing that is probably a watershed moment historically, but our lives also continue day to day. And so you still have to go have cereal or whatever and take your kid to school or whatever you do, still happening. So like even when we think about the Great Depression, you kind of think of it as like all encompassing, but people still fell in love or broke up or had babies or whatever.
Yes.
And so it's so cool to learn the context of like why this happened and how it happened and how it affected people.
Yes.
So anyway,
I love it.
So that's coming up later, everybody. And I also told them I would be more judicious about who I interviewed to make sure it would be something they would be enthusiastic about. So that's...
Oh, I'm enthusiastic about this.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm also enthusiastic about how cute... If you're watching the video version of this on Patreon, do you notice how beautiful my lips look and how glossy and gorgeous they are? Let me go.
I know what you're using. Yes.
Yeah, you do. Actually, I brought it in here. It's Thrive Cosmetics lip gloss.
Look at my eyelashes. Do you notice how amazingly long and individual? Like, let me tell you about this mascara. This is your snowboarding friendly mascara.
Snowboard.
Because it is no flakes, because it goes on and makes little tubes around your eyelashes. It's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So, like, it stays.
Yeah. It's like a
And you know how I'm
snowsuit
a
for your
crier.
eyelashes.
Yes.
Right. Well, you know how influencers, I hate it because they always use the word obsessed. I'm obsessed with this or that. And you're like, no, you're not. You're not. Okay, but we are.
I know. And that lip gloss really is amazing.
It really is. And
no stick. And then I even made out with somebody with it on. No complaints.
You're so right.
No who's complaining anyway. But for real.
Yeah, because I have been a person who has tried every clear lip gloss there is. And it's either two things. It's either glue or disappears in 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
I'm looking at you, Wet and Wild. And so...
for both things.
Right. And so I was very excited when I found a lip gloss that is neither stays but is not glue-like. Anyway, their products are great. Thrive Cosmetics. Yes. You got to try them because we're obsessed.
No, like I could honestly talk for like another 5 minutes about that mascara and like... For real.
Yeah, it's good stuff. They also have an eye brightener, which I have not tried yet, and I will, and I'll report back. Right now, you can get 15% off your first order when you visit thrivecosmetics.com/braincandy. That's Thrive Cosmetics. It's spelled like, because, CAUSEMETICS.com/braincandy for 15% off your first order. I'll put that on Instagram so you get the right link, but you'll love it. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know Sarah wouldn't last episode.
No, right. And I was even like, I was at my friend's Super Bowl party and I was like, out of the blue, unsolicited, was like, let me tell you about this amazing mascara I got. And she's like, is it on your eyelashes right now? Because they look so good. And I was like, yes.
Yeah. I hear you. I believe you.
So, yes.
Okay. First up, I wanted to ask your opinion, which my opinion on this subject keeps switching, which is always fun, where you can like take either side because you can see both sides. Okay.
Yep.
There is a guy who is one of those people with tattoos everywhere, and then he just got them all over his face. You know how some people do that? Fully, it's on his tongue. It's one of those people that's just like, that's the entirety of their skin.
Yes.
Well, he's a kindergarten teacher.
Oh, okay.
And so he got fired from that particular role because they said it was scaring the children. He is still allowed to teach 6 and up. But I wanted to know your opinion about whether you think that's an appropriate response or not, and why.
Well, in a way I do. Mm-hmm. And here's why. Because these are things that he's chosen. They're elective things.
Yeah, right.
It would be totally different if he had some sort of
disfigurement or something.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, I'm scared. And you're like, no, you got to learn how to do this. But this, it falls into the same category as, like, I think a teacher who came in that was wearing very distracting clothing. That was wearing, like, just... It
like
would
a
be
spacesuit.
Yeah, but maybe you could tie that into being educational, but it would have to be more distracting than that. Something that would be just like that would infringe on their ability.
Chaps.
Yeah, it'd be like infringing on their ability to learn and focus. And as a child who's very easily distracted, I wouldn't listen to a word that was coming out of the teacher's mouth because I would be like creating stories about their tattoos and the whole thing. And, you know, yes, I understand that we have to get them, there are different kinds of people out there. But that seems like one where, because it's your choice to get, you're allowed to do whatever you want. But there are certain consequences that come with choices that you make that eliminate you, from being certain things. Like you can't, if you did all that and then wanted to be a model for Clearasil skin zit cream or whatever, they're probably gonna be like, no. And you can't be like, well, you're discrimination because I have you're the wrong fit for this particular thing, not because you can't teach the kids, but because it's just not what we're focusing on right now.
Right. I mean, legally speaking, employers can... I mean, I got fired, or I got threatened to be fired from Victoria's Secret because I had a nose ring at the time. But,
I was told if I got another tattoo or piercing when I worked at Forever 21 that they would let me go.
They have like a cap on how many?
They did at the time. They were like they were like, you can't. They did. It wasn't like a cap, but they made an exception. And then as I was working there, I kept getting more and more.
Pushed it.
And then they were like, we had a no tattoo, no piercing policy, and now you have them. And they were like, okay, one more, and we're gonna have to. And I was like, fuck you, tattoo me.
Well, so
and now that's like now you need that. They won't even hire you, I think, if you don't have face tattoos.
You really blazed the trail. You walked so they could run.
I did.
I mean, so legally speaking, they can do whatever they want. But I saw the article because a person that I follow who's a tattoo artist was saying, like, I'm glad my children have been around people with tattoos so they would already know that it's not some sort of scary reflection of a sinister motives. And so that made me think about it differently. And I thought, well, why do we make it? Maybe it's a problem that your children will be scared by that because it's just their skin.
Scared, I think, is the word that we're focusing on. That's the wrong word here. Like, I think the reasons they're to say we're letting them go because the children are scared. That I wouldn't agree with. No.
Well, the parents were claiming their kids had nightmares. But I see what you mean. You think it's more of a distraction rather than a frighten.
And I think it's a distraction that happens to be manifesting with nightmares and things like that. But at the bottom, at the end of the day, it's a distraction. In the same way, like if it were a high school teacher who came in like, I don't know, dressing all cuckoo crazy and weird and like wearing like a tutu and like had a mohawk and weird stuff going on and like it got in the way of learning because it's like what we do with the kids. We say like because it is a distraction in the classroom. And, there's a time for us to learn about, experiment, and dabble with individuality and identity. And then there's also a real benefit to teaching a little bit about conformity. And I think elementary school is an age where they need those rules. They need to feel like there are...
Oh, so you kind of want to encourage conformity at that time?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Oh, interesting.
I think naturally, I don't even think I want to encourage it. I think we as human beings need that. We gravitate towards that, and that's why you see cliques in like high school and junior high, because it's a time where we're trying so hard to fit in, and we need to feel accepted by our peers and by our social group. And that's why certain emotions like shame and, we want our kids to feel these. We want them because they teach us certain things about how to be human. What are the rules for living in the society that I live in? Not all of them are good. That's why we have to, do a little correcting at home and talk about things like that. But, the idea that a kid might be made fun of because he pees in his pants at school, and, it's not the worst thing if he gets made fun of, because that shame helps his body go, we need to learn how to go to the bathroom and the toilet.
That's part of what I love about Curb Your Enthusiasm, since, we're on the subject,
Yes.
Is how his sort of hyper-focus is about, like, societal norms. And, like, you didn't follow our unwritten rules about how we're supposed to behave as
supposed
people.
to be like this. Right?
Now, he doesn't apply those rules to himself ever. But I do get why he's like, no, we have an agreement societally that we're going to behave this way, and you didn't do that.
Right.
And I think that is an important thing to explore and interrogate. Like, why do we do it this way? And is that the best way?
Correct.
So would you say, this tattoo guy, it's good that he can teach a certain age, where maybe there's more context and they understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's less of a distraction.
I'll tell you what's not a distraction. And that is when it's time for therapy. Thank you, BetterHelp.
Oh, yeah. They'll help you focus.
That'll focus you.
That are right.
What matters in your life. They have licensed professionals that will help you work through those things, talk about them, make sense of them, because the world's a crazy place. I think we can all agree.
Definitely.
And you can get customized online therapy, video, phone, or live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to.
Oh, yeah, phone's the way to go, man.
You into it?
Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm. And it's affordable, and you can be matched with someone in under 48 hours. So if you're feeling the need, they got someone for you. They have a deal for you also. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Brain Candy listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/BrainCandy. That's BetterHelp.com/BrainCandy. Yes. Whatever you want to talk about, they got you covered. Okay. Good enough then about the tattoos. A Brainiac sent me this article about, in this case, it's a gay club, a gay nightclub, but they're having a pheromone party for armpit fetishists. And so all the gays go and they take off their shirts and they like sniff.
This is a new category I was not aware of.
Yes.
Armpit fetishes.
Yes, they are tapping into this thing where like you smell your lover and you know it and you think, I need that.
Yeah, I am very familiar with this.
What do you think about it?
Not armpit parties, guys. No,
pheromones.
The pheromones.
The concept of pheromones.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you?
There's a guy I'm dating that I'm really into.
Yeah.
And I spent the night at his house, and I had a shirt that I took out of my bag and I wore when I was at his house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. I had, like, full emotional reaction when I smelt it again.
Okay, it smelled like him.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And my brain was like I grabbed it and I was like,
no, inhaling.
Yep. Like hard inhale.
If you had to describe the odor, how would you? Floral? Earthy?
A combo of both of those things, actually.
For real?
Because it was kind of like whatever cologne he was wearing and then just like natural. Like, you know, I think my body knows when it's somebody who I am Well,
I don't mean to get too personal, but are you on the pill?
No.
Right. So this is legit.
Yeah.
The pill messes up the old detector.
There's been no pill for a long time.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you're
Since
just sniffing like an animal.
It's like an animal. And yeah. And I think I was definitely ovulating at the time. Because my period happened like 2 weeks later, a week and a half later, whatever it was, 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Okay, so your body was like, I think it's time to breed.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just popped my jaw. Ow. I got
this is
intense.
there.
Yeah. No, and then I made the mistake of washing the shirt, and then I was like mad about it.
Right.
After I was like, no, I want that smell back.
It just ignited something within you.
I think I should go. Yeah, I think I should hang out with him again.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's a good sign.
Yeah, real good sign,
that's
right?
how our bodies are supposedly, like literally sniffing out who our
But
mate
I wouldn't
should
call
be.
it a fetish. I wouldn't call it like.
Well, no, because you aren't sniffing armpits like in the wild.
Yeah, but like I absolutely have buried my face in an armpit before and.
Yeah, Adam does that all the time. He loves my armpits. Maybe he's a fetishist.
Because he's a fetishist. Adam and I maybe have a lot more in common. Like, yeah, he loves your smell.
Yeah, loves it.
What would you say you smell like? A little bit floral?
I don't know that we can identify what we smell like.
We can't.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I do love his smell too, which I think, we're animals, okay? That's what this is.
Yeah.
This is all very natural.
Do I want to be with them? Yeah. Yeah.
But I gotta say, I would not enjoy being a bartender at that party because it is ripe up in there. And the bartenders were talking about it. Even through their N95s, man, they were...
No!
Yeah, they were like, it
Suze.
Because if
That's
everyone...
some odor pollution.
Right. Yes. The nasal ranger would have a field day there.
What armpit parties sponsored by Dove for Men?
Right. Well, because... apparently, unbeknownst to me, this is a popular gay subculture. This is what armpits thing.
I have never heard of this. I usually have my finger on the pulse of.
Well, you
of
did
the fetish.
kind of, because remember hundreds of episodes ago when you told us about the bandana codes with the colors of bandanas when the gay guys wear the magenta is the armpit color. That signals that you're into the armpit smell.
The pits.
The pit party.
If they don't call it a pit party, I swear, gays.
Yeah.
Get Susie on. Get her on this.
And they have other ones. So they have like a fuzzy party if you're into hairy guys. They have a chunky party if you're into the chubbier people. Fire in the hole is for if you're into redheads.
That could have gone a lot of different ways. I was like, spicy foods?
Right? Burning beeholes? No, redheads.
Redheads.
Yeah. And so apparently ditching deodorant is a common thing in the gay community.
This should be a common thing in all communities.
You hate deodorant?
I do. I don't. There's only one kind that I like. This is not an ad, but there's one kind of deodorant that this woman invented a bacteria that because all the smell is the bacteria. And so she invented a product that basically it's like a microbe that just kills that bacteria that smells. And there's nothing else in it. You can use it anywhere on the body, on your feet, it's like just a cream. And
does it start with an L?
Yes.
Okay.
I bought it and it works.
Because Adam gets very offended because we've been seeing ads for that on the Food Network. And he is like upset that they say that, you can put it on your private parts.
Right.
Because he's like, why is your...
Does he know what the fuck balls smell like? Remember how we just talked about how you can't smell yourself?
But they only show women in the ad. So I think he doesn't like that they are focusing on vagina smell.
I don't think they are, because I hear the ads and I hear maybe it's just the Food Network. They
know who's
are assuming
watching.
that the people watching are women. Because
Right.
then I'm watching all the other shows. I'm like, funny, I'm watching the two
Sundays. That's hilarious.
Are your armpits stinky?
Sarah said, targeted. That's really funny. Your targeted ads are like for men. Okay.
They are. They totally. My Instagram feed has no idea who I am.
Right.
Because I get some ads that it's like, she's all over the map.
Wait, who's calling me? Don't call me. I hate you. Whoever just called me.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so at any rate, yeah, the kind that Sarah uses, apparently you can put it on your vagina, your feet, anything that smells.
Anything. And it totally works.
It works. Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't smell, it like just eats away that bacteria, and like I just use that and you're like good for until you take a shower again.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. If they would like to sponsor our show.
Right, I'd love that. I'll have to reach out to them. All right, moving on.
That does seem like a good fit for us. I'm just saying.
Right. I feel like everything we like, they should pay us to talk about it because...
Duh.
Yeah. Obviously.
Obviously.
All right, let's talk about this because this is funny to me because it relates to you. Okay. There was an article on... I think it was, I forget where. And it was talking about, I think it was Atlas Obscura, and it was talking about, is there a general American accent? Like the newscaster.
I love this argument.
Yeah. The newscaster, like devoid of affect, accent, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I say. Like
it is the California accent.
This is what made me change my mind. Because I was like, yes, there is. It's called newscaster, and you watch the news, and that's what they have.
Which is the California accent.
However, I always thought that only Sarah was doing something, but it turns out it's a Southern California thing. Uh-huh. Which is
what do I do?
Your pronunciation of the word milk.
Milk.
No, you say milk.
Milk. Yes.
And they use that as an example of a Southern California.
I love when Sarah's right about things, but sort of, but not really, but only accidentally.
Yeah, milk and how do you say Think?
Think.
They say that Southern Californians pronounce it Theenk. Think.
I would think. Oh, you know what? I would. If I were saying it in a sentence and I was like, well, I think we're going to go to, it would be think. Think. Yes.
And here's the thing,
Not
really,
think.
from this article. I make notes when I read. And then when it gets to be overwhelming, then I know I got to talk about it because I want to just cut and paste the whole thing. It is such a good article. I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, let me tell you about something else that's really good. It's Function of Beauty. All you guys writing in, how does Sarah get her hair like that? It's so cute. It's so bouncy. It's so healthy. That is the secret. Function of Beauty. We both use it. It's 100% customizable for your hair. So if you want to grow it long, you want to deal with damage, color, whatever, they will customize it just for you. Just take the quiz on their website and select your hair goals. And then you can choose your color and fragrance, or you could do no dye, no fragrance, au naturel. Go straight to your door, and you got a bunch of good hair days coming up. Say goodbye to generic hair care for good. Today, go to functionofbeauty.com/braincandy to take your hair goals quiz, and you get to save 25% off your first order. Go to functionofbeauty.com/braincandy to let them know you heard about it from our show, and you'll get 25% off your first order. That's functionofbeauty.com/braincandy to take your hair quiz and save 25% on your first order. Okay. People used to say that Midwestern people had the, quote, general American accent, but then something changed, and then they started talking like my persona, Mannequin Erickson. Okay, so, you know, you go down to the Star and you get whatever. And that it changed, and like they were using the word bag. Before the shift, it was pronounced with the tongue fairly low in the mouth.
Bag.
Like you would say bag, yeah. But then after the shift, that vowel sound, as linguists say, raise the tongue much higher in the mouth, and now it turned into a diphthong, like the compound vowel. So now it's bag. So instead of bag, there's like two vowel sounds.
Yeah.
Bag.
Yes.
And so,
I love these.
And they were talking about how the vowel in the word coin is a diphthong, like coin. It goes oing.
Yeah.
And so they were talking about how that shift happened. Okay, so now they're not the general American accent. So, like, who is? And so they basically, Americans tend to believe that the accent they're most familiar with, as Sarah just demonstrated, is the basic accent.
Yep.
Okay. So that's what they did with people in Michigan. They were like, hey, what is the...
And they said Michigan.
Yeah, and they said they used a specific word. Let me see if I have it in here. Whatever the word was, they played it with a Detroit accent, and then they did a bunch of options. Which one is the most similar? And all the Detroit people picked the one that was had no accent. And so Michigan people can't tell the difference between their accent and no accent.
Wow.
And then they said Alabamans ranked the highest in terms of they hated theirs. But they said...
They hate their accent?
They hated theirs. They were unlike Michigan. They hated it. But they thought that Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas were worse. So even though they hate theirs, they can identify ones that they think are less seemly.
Yeah. Do you think this has anything to do with whatever accent we use as the... almost like we're mocking it, whatever the mocking American accent is. I feel like that used to be one of the voice you do, the Monica Erickson voice, and then it switched to the South,
right?
And now we kind of have a rednecky accent of how we mock Americans.
Well, and they gave the example of Stephen Colbert and how he said in an interview he's from the South, but he purposefully avoided that because he didn't want to be perceived as stupid. He said, I don't think Southern people are stupid, but that's the stereotype, and I didn't want to be thought to be that. Yeah. And so there's all these perceptions, which obviously I notice because when I'm with Adam out in a restaurant, I might as well be invisible.
People go goo goo gaga for him.
And we think they sound so smart and sophisticated. So is everyone in England smart and
Meanwhile,
sophisticated?
Susie's sitting there with her PhD.
I get no respect. But so it is silly how we decide Southerners are stupid, British people are very smart and sophisticated, whatever. It is stupid how we do it. But I don't know. It's just... What convinced me, though, besides the milk thing, was that in this article, which I'm going to have Delia put in the newsletter, you can listen to clips of newscasters from around the country.
Ah.
And they'll say, listen at this second when they say first aid kit or they say the name Abby. Mm-hmm. And then they'll explain why it's not just devoid of an accent, that there is, in fact, an accent. And I would listen... And I didn't see an accent because it was probably similar enough to my own speech.
To what you have. Yeah.
That I was like, that's... Or the word 10. The woman said, tonight at 10, blah, blah, blah. And they said she sounded like she said tin. But to me, it was so subtle.
I'm going to have to hear those things.
Yeah, because it's we're all lying to ourselves thinking there's a basic one.
It's interesting you say that. Interesting that you say that because I was just looking at a video from NPR this morning that was on sound and how we interpret sound, and they played a clip of a very jarbled message, and then they say, "What did you hear there?" And you can't hear a freaking thing.
Okay.
And then they say, "This clip says," and they go, "Now listen to it without the jarbled, mixing up." You hear it says, the lemons are sour or something like that. And then they go, okay, now listen to it jarbled up again. And you can hear the lemons are sour, just like that. And it says, they said, there's something in our brain that just like how we listen to a song and it takes us back to a moment in time. Our memories are so encoded with sound in ways that we don't really fully understand yet, that it changes how we hear things. So what everybody hears is different based on their past experience with any of that sound or anything that sounds even closely familiar to that. So you have more experience with the language, with those tones, so you hear those things differently, maybe don't even notice it. And I don't have experience with those tones, so I would notice it.
It's freaky.
It's totally, this is what I've learned in 590 bajillion episodes, however many we've done. Don't trust your eyes. Mm-hmm. Don't trust your ears. Exercise, get good sleep.
Right, yeah. All of that.
That's it.
Yeah. Have some friendships. Appreciate
Have
nature.
about 5 friends.
Yeah.
Go outside. Get good sleep. Exercise. Don't trust your eyes.
Here.
Don't trust your
Let's wrap it up.
That was fun.
Well, it's funny that you actually bring that up because I separately had just read an article in The Atlantic, I think, or New Yorker. Ugh, I hate when I forget. Aha! I hate when I forget because it's about memory. Ha! Funny. Okay, right. So this was about how many of your memories are false.
Oh, like all of them.
Yeah, like all of them.
Pretty much all of them. Okay. Have you tried to go back and remember it? Well, then you've changed it. And this many years? Please.
Well, and I think part of what I want to take away from it is like, that's okay, because the point of memories aren't to be some sort of inerrant record.
Right.
It's about the stories that we tell about our own life and how to make sense of a world of chaos. So you want to make meaning. You want things to matter. This is part of that. That when you recall something, that you're reshaping it, you're reforming it, even though you're not aware of that.
I love what you just said, that when you're recalling, you're reshaping, you're reforming it. We hear the word, oh, I need to process this. Oh, I'm going to process all the time. People throw out that word in therapy all the time. And I feel like it's like one of those things where people say it, but they don't really know what that means, or they think it's going to be a lot of work. They think like, oh, I don't even have time to process this memory. I don't have time to process this. I can't do this right now. All that means is going back and re-examining the memory, looking at the memory with a new set of eyes, with a different awareness, with the information that you have now, and reimagining or reworking, rethinking that, reprocessing that memory through a lens that's absent of fear or incorrect information or unrealistic expectations or an immature mind, whatever it is. That's it. Mm-hmm. And then by doing that, we change the memory. We change our connection to it. We change how we file it in our brain. And that's how we heal. That our brain goes, oh, okay, let me take that out of the, oh, you did this terrible thing and this is why you're not worthy of love category, and put it in the, you were a child and you were doing the best you can. Mm-hmm. And you're good, cat. And that's it. That's it.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing.
No, it's great.
I think people think of it as bad because it feels so like it's happening to us. It's like we think we're recording everything accurately, and that unbeknownst to us, we're sort of falsifying our own narrative. But I don't want to see it as falsifying, because it's context to what you've learned so far, and then it'll change depending on what you learn moving forward. But the particular study that this article was referring to was about those people like Mary Lou Henner, who can remember every day of their life and what they had for breakfast that day and stuff. And they were trying to determine whether this is true for them as well, whether their memories are malleable. and error filled or not.
Wow.
And they are. They're no different, really.
There you go.
They said 20 people with,
know.
The super memories were shown slideshows featuring a man stealing a wallet from a woman while pretending to help her, and then a man breaking into a car with a credit card and stealing $1 bills and necklaces. Later, they read 2 narratives about those slideshows containing misinformation. When later asked about the events, the superior memory subjects indicated the erroneous facts as truth at about the same rate as people with the normal memory.
That gives me goosebumps. That is, in a way, we should feel comfort in that.
Yeah.
We really should.
Right. And they gave other examples, but the point was that they're more likely also to remember things that have some sort of meaning to them. You might think, well, then why do they remember that they had bran flakes that day? Well, maybe that had some sort of importance to them, but that... trivial details are usually discarded or can be rearranged and changed, and that they're kind of like the same, and that it's a human thing, and it's probably a human thing because it helps us in some other way that, like as Sarah just described. Yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah. And our brain is excellent. I've seen multiple examples recently of how our brain protects us by just deleting certain memories.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that my mom has no memory of her accident before and after is so obviously her brain gone.
Because that would be terrible to relive.
It would be awful.
Sometimes I wish we got rid of more than we do.
Yeah, I would like
but not too many.
Right.
But some things I suppose are about learning. Which in her case, she can learn from the injury. She doesn't need to learn from the movie going through her brain all the time.
Right. Oh, right.
But I'll tell you something else that you should learn about, and that is pendulum, which if you are a guy or gal who has diabetes, then you go. Pendulum Therapeutics is a company that you might want to familiarize with yourself with. It's a glucose control. And it can help you out. I thankfully do not suffer from this ailment, but I know a lot of people who do. And diet and exercise alone are not enough to manage it. So that is where Pendulum comes in and can help you get control of all that stuff, keep your levels on track, and manage type 2 diabetes. If someone you love has type 2 diabetes, take control of glucose levels with Pendulum Glucose Control. Use code BRAINCANDY at pendulumlife.com to get 20% off all their products. That's pendulumlife.com. Promo code BRAINCANDY for 20% off. And now, Sarah and I will be introducing you to the wonderful Danielle Friedman, who wrote a book called Let's Get Physical, which we're going to talk about. Just in case you're like, should I listen to the interview or not? One thing, I was going to say funny, but I don't even know if it is, about the misperceptions about women and exercising in days not that long ago. They thought that if you ran too much, your uterus would fall out.
You know what's terrible? I've heard this.
Shut! Yeah. Someone is still saying this?
I heard that you definitely shouldn't run when you're pregnant.
Right.
This is not true.
Right, it's not true. Ugh. Well, so her book, contextualizes all these myths and misinformation, disinformation, and nonsense, and then also tells you how things got where they are with whatever you're doing. What are you doing? Like Peloton? Are you doing yoga, bar? I don't know. What are people doing?
Oh, yeah. I want to know all these things.
But anyway, you will love this interview. So stay tuned. Don't get mad. I hope I gave you enough warning. Welcome to the show, Danielle. Danielle Friedman, thank you so much for coming on the show. Let me show your book for those watching. Let's Get Physical. How great is this book? How Women Discovered Exercise and Reshaped the World. What a task. Did you feel overwhelmed with this, having to tell this whole story?
A little bit. Well, thank you so much for having me on, first of all. Yes. I mean, fitness and wellness and beauty culture and all of the themes and topics that I attempted to sort of wrangle into one story here are so vast. And so the challenge really was just honing in on, on fitness, especially, and then on looking at the women who really have had the most impact over the years, and who laid the foundation for working out and the way that we move today. But yeah, I mean, I could probably write an entire second book just based on what my editor cut for my first draft. So,
well, yeah. I was saying to Sarah beforehand, I was starting to make a list of all the things that intersect to create the story. 'Cause it was like race, gender, class, even, religion, the male gaze, all that stuff that prevented maybe women from partaking or changed how they started working out. But you did such a good job of making the chapters tell the story chronologically, but then entangling all that nonsense. Was it self-evident to you, here's what the chapters ought to be, or did it take some time to figure out what was the focus?
It took a little bit of time. And yeah, I set out to incorporate those other realms that you just mentioned, because I thought, because they are so, understanding the history and that context is so important just for understanding the evolution of fitness. So I did feel that it made sense to kind of tell this story chronologically. But I knew from the start that I did want it to read. I wanted it to read as novelistically as possible. I wanted it to be, a page turner as much as a cultural history can be. And part of what drew me to the book, the idea for the book in the first place, was just how fascinating and almost cinematic the characters are, the pioneers are. So I wanted to bring them to life for readers, and as a way, in many cases, to honor them. So, it sort of just worked out kind of nicely that each chapter captured a different decade, a different movement in women's fitness history, and a different pioneer who helped to spearhead that movement. And, there was some overlap, and I tried to show how everything was interconnected, but that allowed me to at least tell it as a story.
This, Sarah, I have to tell you, or Danielle will have to tell you, there is this freaking story towards the beginning about the freaking 1928 Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Can you clarify what the devil happened? Yeah, tell Sarah.
Yeah, and it's so funny. You're the first person who's brought that up, and it is such a bonkers story. So basically, one of the reasons why women were denied opportunities to run competitively and run long distances in the Olympics for so long was because during the 1928 Olympics, for the first time, they had created an 800-meter event for women. And the 800-meter event's really tricky because it's longer than a sprint, but it's not long enough where you can really, pace yourself. So something like 9 women came out from a bunch of different countries around the world. They had trained really hard, and they gave it their all. It was also like a stiflingly hot and humid day. They gave it their all. They broke records. And at the end, they collapsed onto the field, as one does, when they've given everything they have to their sport. Well, the visage of women, heaped over, sweating, grimacing,
looking like athletes,
okay. Right, was so horrifying to spectators and to reporters that it had this, not only was it covered as if there had been a massacre, on the track, but it had this chilling effect. And so the event was struck from future Olympics. It wouldn't be reinstated for 30 years.
My God. This is insane.
Yeah.
There's
they were described as
is it because they looked like they were kind of after sex,
like, and they were outraged by them just being like breathing heavy, and they're like, this is inappropriate.
Right. They brought it on all themselves. Yeah. There was no, it was purely solo, but yeah, it's nuts. And it also, you know, it discouraged just like young girls around the country from running and reaching their potential. So the history of this. Yeah.
Because ideally that would have been evidence of like, see, their uterus won't fall out and everything's okay. But they used it, they weaponized it against women. I still am unclear why they thought that would happen to the uterus in the first place. Do we know the origin of that story?
I will be honest with you. My fact checker and I, tried very hard to get to the root of that myth. And as yet we have been unable to, to treat that. However, we affirm many women that was something that they had been told growing up, that they feared growing up. So much so that Bonnie Pruden, one of the first women's fitness pioneers that I write about, like one of her catchphrases was, I've visited a lot of school gyms and I've never seen a uterus on the floor. So it was a thing. And I mean, I think there was just so much fear around women's bodies and women losing their ability to reproduce, and the idea of women just becoming strong was very threatening for a really long time, and probably still is.
One of the themes of the book is about this sort of weird and delicate balance between empowering women and the feminist ideal with beauty culture, which, fitness kind of toes that line. Like, are you doing this because you want to be strong and mighty and powerful, or is it because you want to be small and conform to this very narrow idea of what's beautiful? How do you feel about that now, having written this whole book and looking at the big picture?
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest challenges of writing about this topic and telling the story was just sort of accepting that those two sort of storylines are completely tangled up and coexist. And fitness is both liberating and oppressive. It can lead to both strength and weakness. And so I wanted to really kind of try to get to the bottom of how fitness and beauty and diet culture became so intertangled, with the goal of attempting to be able to untangle them so that we can harness exercise in a way for all the good reasons, for all of the benefits that it brings us. I think for much of the 20th century, the fitness pioneers that emerged were quite savvy in that they recognized that just telling women to exercise for strength's sake, even for health's sake, would just sort of never got over, because people, vigorous exercise was taboo. Plus there were all the fears and the myths. And so it was kind of like they treated it as like broccoli dipped in chocolate. They were like, no, you should have muscles because it will make you, you can hold on to your honeymoon figure. And so it was sold as a beauty tool, and it worked. But I don't think I would venture to say that those early pioneers had no idea kind of like what they were, the monster they were creating in doing that back then. Because the other thing is, while women have been striving to be thin for a very long time, what ended up happening was that as women's fitness became more of a force and a movement throughout the 20th century, the expectations were increasingly upped. So it was no longer enough to just be thin. Then you had to be toned. Then you had to have buns of steel, and it just the ideals became increasingly out of reach for most women, which was sort of such a sad outcome of, something that has the potential to be so genuinely, empowering.
I thought you did such a good job, though, of framing it as like, here's all the great stuff. Or was it just another trap? And as you finally put, or a steel trap, as it were. And even the language, like you talked about the thigh master and how that particular wording is kind of loaded and
absolutely
not great.
Yeah.
Maybe. Right? We have to like, you know, cage our bodies and like master them.
Control them.
Yeah. Control them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's an interesting storyline there where fitness went from being a way for women to feel in control of their bodies and to develop this physical competence and confidence and trust that they had never had. But then as it kept going, it then became a tool for sort of society and, you know, patriarchal beauty ideals to control women by putting us on a never-ending sort of, you know, quest for to-do list. Yeah. Quest for perfection.
And like, Sarah, right? Like just when you're here.
Right. Because I'm like thinking about all of that. And just even the idea that there's a difference between health and fitness. And we have not really recognized, we're just starting to kind of see the difference in those two.
Well, you did explore that in that last chapter, talking about bodies that are not what is traditionally seen as fit on Instagram and stuff, saying like, oh yeah, we do yoga and we're healthy at all kinds of sizes and shapes.
Right.
Do you think we've made inroads there, or is this just like a lie we're telling ourselves?
So having, you know, just spent several years steeped in women's fitness history, I do think we have seen significant progress. I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think we're at the very beginning of what needs to be a massive social and cultural shift. But I think, as I do write in my last chapter, which I very intentionally titled Expand, you know, I think that at the very least, we are starting to see a little bit more representation for what fit bodies can look like. We're seeing more body diversity in fitness spaces. And there is pushback. There is major pushback to the unrealistic ideals that are, you know, that are presented through fitness and beauty culture. But we've just, you know, we're dealing with so many decades of these ingrained beliefs that, first of all, that, you know, thin equals fit, and that fit equals virtuous. And we hold so many, I think, biases about people's, you know, workout habits and level of fitness that we're not even aware of, that we have to really confront in order to get to a place where of true liberation through movement.
It blew my mind at the end there where you mentioned how health is correlated to how you feel about your body and your size more than the size itself. So if you're a certain size, but you love it and feeling great, that you're healthier, whatever, you get it.
Yeah. And there's a study that I cite as well that basically it's similar to, it's like, it was people's overall fitness level, not their size or how fat they were, that correlated, or, you know, that had a direct relationship with sort of life expectancy and disease and all of the things that in the past we've been really quickly to just to attribute to fatness without any, you know, question. So there is,
like we, it was correlation, not causation, about the bigness of someone.
Yes.
And then we were like, nope, that's what it is. Anyway, we're going to talk about that for the next 50 years.
Right. Right.
I would experience it on the challenge when people would say, oh, there's no way that she's going to do well in a final because she's bigger than everybody else. And all the girls who were focusing on a different kind of fitness where they were calorie deprived towards the end of it and didn't have the strength to last for, you know, a 48-hour kind of event, it was easy to beat them because I had the gas in the tank and it was a different kind of...
Even the fact that you're considering yourself a bigger person in that story is kind of weird.
In that,
right.
well, and I'm
in that
now.
context,
I was a good 40 pounds more muscle than I am now. But yeah, I saw it, and it was like, people go, no, there's no way that she shouldn't be the one. They couldn't even link the two.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, Danielle.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think the Health at Every Size movement is doing such important work. And in my sphere, I feel like Health at Every Size has become really widely known. I'm not sure, how far that extends, but I just think their research in particular into the idea that the shame of, or I should say like the stress of living in a body that is constantly shamed, can be just as detrimental to our health as, again, just having, in many cases, much more detrimental to health than body size. It's just a really powerful idea that I hope more people, I hope to educate more people about the work that they're doing.
I love the section that you did on the girdle and the way that the lycra or the fat, the material that was used to make girdles ended up being the thing that gave women freedom. Like you said, that it was, a restraint, and then it was then used to provide this freedom to women. It seemed like a fitting, a symbol for the whole book about how
no pun
can
intended.
be both. Yeah. Right. And I did harass you also into like showing us some of your paraphernalia. So like during your research period for this book, were you just immersed in contraptions?
Jazzercise, just all day, just jazzercising away.
I mean, I'm not going to deny that.
I went to all of those classes with my mom in my bassinet, and I just remember, I don't remember that part, but she was a big time jazzerciser. I think it was 90% because she got to wear the outfit, and 10% because she had the layers with the thong in the back. I remember it. And she loved it.
Some of my earliest life memories are of accompanying my mom to aerobics in like the backseat of our Buick, and then hanging out in childcare or babysitting or whatever, while we danced. And it really, I think that's part of probably why I felt like so intrigued by this topic, because it's like embedded in me. But
did you also watch Mickey's Mousercise?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
That was a favorite too, if you had parents who were doing that. It was so fun. Come on, everybody.
Wait a minute, Danielle, you went viral originally with an article that you wrote on the the secret sexual history of bar. Why do you think that was so, like, people were like, yes, I want to read this. This is right up my alley.
That's a great question. Okay. Well, I think the bar is, there's something about it that, especially like thinking women who also exercise, sort of are like love to hate. Because bar culture can be so sort of prim, and it's often talked about as being like the pretty girl workout. It's very restrained. There's the dancer's body promise of it. I think the contrast between like that culture and what turned out to be this completely insane origin story, just, got people's attention. But the brief, the premise of that, I mean, I had started taking bar, and I was sort of, I was surprised by how, despite the primness, like how sexual many of the moves were, the tucks and sexual. The thrusts. Yeah. And
I went with my mom, and I was uncomfortable.
Totally. Like, and no one's acknowledging it. Everyone is super serious. No one's like laughing or talking to each other. And I was like, this is weird. But I also was like, I was doing a lot of reporting on women's sexual health at the time. And I was kind of like, maybe this workout actually is like sneakily beneficial for women's sexual health. And one thing led to another. And I stumbled on the story of Lottie Burke, the woman who invented it, who was
horn dog.
yeah.
Like, there's a bar.
Yeah. And just super eccentric. And it turned out those moves are like the great grandchildren of what she created, which she named, like, her moves were actually called the prostitute and like the French toilet and the sex. Yeah. So
I love this. Now it makes sense of why I did that when I was getting married, like in my prep to fit into the wedding dress kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was in the best shape because it was like the opposite of everything I was ever doing to work out before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, these are cool moves because usually you're just throwing a sandbag over your shoulder.
Right.
And so it was something. But I was at the class with my mom and they were like, "Oh my goodness, you're amazing. Do you have the dance background?" And Mom was like, "Yes, I do." All those years of jazzercise. I was like, "Oh,
I love it." Yeah. I would definitely be a little like, if I went with my mom, I would have her stand like several feet away.
Danielle's like, blowing ladies' minds. Like, she's like, this modest, elegant thing you thought that you were doing to get a little tone.
Doing a sex workout.
Wow.
Totally.
I have news for you.
Do you have a favorite workout craze that like,
good question.
Like a historical craze?
Could be new or old, doesn't matter, whichever,
we're coming full circle here, but I love jazzercise. And actually
gotta win.
This in particular, like, and there, I think actually the full length, this is Let's Jazzercise with Judy Shepard Missett from 1983. I think the full thing is on YouTube actually. And
I want to watch.
It's so weird. It actually, it really, like, to modern eyes looks like Kristen Wiig, playing an aerobics instructor. And you just can't look away. But there's something also like so joyful. And so if I could just do that as my workout forever, and maybe I can, I would be happy.
Sarah, what's your favorite? Is it jazzercise? The Thigh Master, let's not forget your history with that.
You know what I do? I am a big fan of that I went to a couple classes of, and it surprised me because I wasn't thinking I was going to get what I got out of it, was the S Factor classes. That was like the pole dancing.
Okay.
Yes. And this one was like more women's sensuality. And because it is kind of hidden in a lot of these, it's like a safe space, women only. There were no mirrors in this class. And so that was like a surprising one for me. That was pretty fun. Yeah. I do also have a special place in my heart for Jane Fonda.
Absolutely.
I mean, my friend had a Jane Fonda workout mat, and every time I would spend the night at her house, that was like what I slept on when we had our sleepovers and put underneath.
Oh, amazing.
So she was like, "You want to come over and sleep on Jane Fonda?"
What do you got there?
Like, yeah,
oh my God.
This is the Jane Fonda record.
Oh my God, I love this.
She is so great.
Yeah. I have my, it's actually heavily like marked up, but this was the original Jane Fonda workout book, which
oh my God.
is signed. I got this like off of Amazon, and it came, I don't even think it advertised that it was signed, and it had like this ticket from an event that she did in 1982.
Okay, you were supposed to have that. That is the universe being like, there's only one person who needs it. Is can we just like recognize how awesome it is that you got that was signed?
That's so true. I know.
Nobody else got that.
That is
awesome.
Lucky.
Yeah,
that feels very cosmic, very meant to be. I love the story.
You know what, Danielle? I love that chapter on Jane Fonda because. Okay, Jane's like totally fucked up. I love it because, who isn't? But yet, created something really cool and empowering, even though it is fraught and problematic at times and like white lady smallness, all that jazz. But
all that jazz
empire.
Yeah.
On the backs of us.
Yeah.
On the backs of our insecurity. But I think the intention was good.
I was about to say, I do think she was very well intentioned in what she created. And like, when you go back and if you like really look through this book, and I tried to pull out the highlights in my book, but she, she's very explicitly talking about like bashing the weaker sex, that women are the weaker sex, stereotype and encouraging women to develop muscles. And then, I think she had her original workout studio in Beverly Hills, and then with the book and then with the VHS, she wanted to kind of like democratize women's fitness, which, she was only able to do to an extent, but the idea was to bring it to the masses. And then her video, even though she was actually reluctant to do a video at first, went on to be one of the best-selling home videos of all time. It sold 17 million copies. So
no joke. Well, and I kept, go ahead. I want to see what you're about to grab.
I'm just getting excited. So another treasure that I have, so this was a brochure for her original Beverly Hills workout studio.
Wow.
Oh, yes, to that. Look at her.
I would go. Sign me up.
Hot stuff.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's, actually, and this was like a friend of a friend had saved this. And a friend of a friend who had used to work out there, and it's in pristine condition. And so this was just very cool.
Very jealous.
Wow. Yeah. It's very interesting too. I just want to add, I think there's been a lot of conversation about how wellness feels like a very contemporary, like last, 5-10 years sort of phenomenon. But like the first line of this is the workout represents a holistic approach to physical and mental wellness. So there are deep roots here. Yeah.
Right.
We had some things right in the 70s.
Yeah. Like it was just like, but it was embedded in like all kinds of bullshit, which, everything still is. So what's new there? Yeah. Here's what I will say, because I really am so glad I read this book, and I know our listeners will love it because it changed how I feel when I work out.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It makes me so happy to hear. Yeah.
Honestly, it made me feel a connection to a line of women who like stuck their necks out. A lot of them were like sexually ambiguous. Some of them were leses. I love my leses. And like, they were saying like, we deserve to feel our bodies and be strong and move them and be in touch with them and not feel shame. And it did, I felt connect me to that. And it gave me more of a joy about it because I get a sitter's high, Danielle. Like I love working out. Unlike you guys that get the endorphins or whatever the hell. But you added some joy to my routine. And I'm so thankful to that. It was really good.
That truly makes my day because that was one of my goals. I was partly looking for additional meaning in my own workouts and, exercising. But in finding that for myself, I wanted to impart that to others. Yeah.
Sarah, you have to ask her what we ask everybody.
Oh, my favorite question. We ask everybody because we feel like it reflects where you are in your life. What do you keep in the trunk of your car?
I live in New York City.
I was just going to say, I know that always is like the worst when they're like New York City riders too.
Okay, but do you have a backpack?
Yeah, like your go everywhere, go back.
Your go back.
No, that's it. Well, right now it's also like, what do I keep in the undercarriage of my son's stroller? Because that is sort of like my SUV. Yeah.
What's in there?
Along with diapers and, oh gosh, it's going to be really boring. It's like a sad state. It's masks, wipes. I do usually have an extra lipstick, some extra beauty products.
Yes.
It is practical.
Did you grow up in New York?
No, I'm from Atlanta. So I grew up driving. And I was going to say another probably lens into my life is that like I now have like lost the ability to drive that I had when I was 17 years old. And I feel like New York, there's there's the delayed adolescence sort of that comes from living here. And that's very much of a part of it. Like I have to like rely fully on other people to drive me at the moment, which I don't love. But I'm hopeful that someday I can like regain the skills that I had when I was a senior in high school.
I think just kind of like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll pick it up pretty quick.
Do you remember, though, when you lived in Atlanta, did you have a trunk in your car? Because was it messy? Basically, what I'm getting at is, like, was it minimalist or, like, full of crap?
Oh, totally messy. I drove like a 1989 Nissan Maxima, and despite my best attempts, and yeah, like if I were to turn the camera a little bit where I'm sitting too, you would get a glimpse
totally
of
different world.
Yeah. So,
okay. Last thing I want to know, because I can't get enough of this book, is like, was there something that really shocked you that you learned in your research about women's fitness?
I mean, I think on like a broad level, just how recent so much of this history is and so many of these developments are. Yeah, I was really shocked to learn that women were not like allowed to run an Olympic marathon until 1984. I mean, that
is unreal.
Yeah.
That's our lifetime.
Exactly.
I can't deal with this stuff.
Yeah, same.
I'm sorry. Anybody who says there's not a problem with gender equality needs to just go back couple years.
Minutes, yeah.
I know. And
oh God.
Sports bra wasn't invented until 1977, didn't come out until 78. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah. And it just speaks to how little women were really moving in a intentional way, vigorous way for so long. So
considered, yeah.
I was sort of continually shocked along the way, but those are some of the big ones that stand out. Yeah.
Well, Let's Get Physical is phenomenal. I hope everybody reads it. It is fun. It is a page turner, but it also provides such great historical context for what the heck we've been through as women and what's still happening. It's just wonderful work. Good job. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be here.